everybody. Welcome back to another episode of What's Your Mount Rushmore? Now, you know what this is. This is a podcast where we talk about our 4 favorite things in a huge variety of topics. I mean, we're all over the board. I'm one of your hosts. My name is John Hansen.
And I'm Mark Duvel. I'm the other regular here. And this episode is an absolute beast. And here's why. The topic is 1980s comedy movies. So that already should get your knees shaken, because once you start really thinking about it, it is hard to narrow it down to 4. This episode is even that much more special because we have our very first special guest. And our special guest, just to give him a little bit of a drum roll while I talk, our special guest is a pretentious, arrogant jerkweed who puts himself before others. I'm kidding, sort of. He is a very successful voice actor who has voiced hundreds of commercials, narrations, and theme park promos. In his spare time, he picks fights on Facebook with brainless, half-witted sloths like myself and John, and he also loves beer. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I give you the one and only legend of the Twin City area, Terry Daniel.
Yes. Oh my God! Listen to the thunderous roar of applause. You know how badly rated is your show that you have to have some clown like me come on it as your first guest? This screams desperation.
We were a little desperate. We were a little desperate, but you know,
I'm going to defend our choice because your voice alone makes men and women's trousers fall to the ground the minute you start speaking.
Hey now.
And that's eventually, we're working our way to this being a pantsless podcast, and we'll eventually change the name and no one will even know.
It's seriously an honor. And you know what, you guys, congratulations on that Grammy nomination for Best New Podcast. I mean, you've only had how many episodes? You already got a nomination for one of those trophies.
And like the arrogant prick I am, I already wrote my acceptance speech.
That is unbelievable, you guys. You have made an impact on the entire country so far.
Well, and even just to give the listener a quick background, us 3 clowns all did at one point all work in Twin Cities radio together. That's how we know Terry. And Terry, in all seriousness, he's become a truly an incredibly talented voice actor and does tons of stuff. So to have you on our podcast, it's exciting. And that being said, I know this was a topic also perfect for you. We know, the generation you were raised in, and 1980s comedy movies are, like we were talking before we went live. These are the movies that formed part of our outlook on life and comedy and
absolutely
humor in general. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Terry. I'm going to give you the honors of, releasing your first pick on the mountain.
Oh my God. You know how hard this was, you guys? I changed my 4 probably 100 times. I spent all day changing them around. I was so excited for this that I kept working on my Mount Rushmore, and I couldn't get anything else. But I'm going to have to roll with Fletch.
Does this proposition entail my dressing up as Little Bo Peep?
With Chevy Chase,
nice.
Because it worked so well. It felt like he was basically ad-libbing.
Yes.
Michael Ritchie at the time is a great director, good comedy director who directed a lot of great films. There's only one Irvin R. Fletcher, and that was Chevy Chase.
Yeah. Great pick.
It was incredible. And just, thinking of the memories too, because the movie was so good that I saw it in a shitty theater, Northtown Theater in Blaine at the time, one speaker below the screen. But the movie was so fucking funny that it didn't matter. But it literally, I could have brought my dad's old AM transistor radio and put it under the screen, and that would have been better audio at the time. But that theater was an absolute asshole.
Well, it just goes to show you. It goes to show what a good movie it was. That it overcame the terrible theater and the terrible sound, and you still remember it as being on your Mount Rushmore.
I still have melted dots on the bottom of my Tigers tennis shoes from walking down that aisle in the theater.
Oh, so you were cool. You had tigers, and I ran around in my kangaroo Velcros.
But that was last week.
Oh yeah, in my whitewash jean jacket with the collar up, and the
God, I do know that movie theater well, because it was like 2 places where I grew up. You'd either go there or you would go to Brookdale. in the movie
Yeah, you would go to
theater,
Brookdale. Because the UA movies at Brookdale, that was the hot spot to be back then.
that was like the new one, and then you had the old white building,
There's
which
nothing,
I forgot.
There's nothing there anymore. But yeah, and then across the highway, I worked at Chuck E. Cheese at Blaine, and if I wasn't cutting pizzas, I got to dress as those characters, and that was always fun when the heat was up to about 85 degrees, and you had to like the mascot look, and you're supposed to be nice.
Still there too.
You're supposed to be nice to the kids, and you're sweating your balls off, ready to have a grand mal seizure. So again, the movie's all about bringing back memories too. So that was an easy choice for me.
That's a great pick.
That's a great choice. And I've seen Fletch in the last couple of years, and it holds up. That's the beauty of some of these movies, or all the movies on my list as we get to them. They all hold up, at least to me. They all still stand the test of time.
The movie holds up. The soundtrack by Harold Faltermeyer is a little outdated because it's that old, because he did the Axel F theme, where it's the do, 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 do. Yeah, it's all synthesizer shit. It's so obviously 80s.
Yeah.
But brilliant, but so fitting.
Oh my God,
but fitting.
So fitting.
It was
absolutely
an 80s movie.
Yep.
Well, that's a great one. So, I mean, I Mark, if you don't mind, I'll dive into my first pick because I can pivot from that one real easy.
By all means, go.
My first pick is another Chevy Chase movie. It's the original National Lampoon's Vacation.
You'll be whistling Zippity Doo Dah out of your assholes.
It's hard to argue with that one.
When I first sat down and started making this list, that was the easy one. That's the one I knew that had to make the list, and everything else I had to shuffle around. But that was just a great movie. It was written by John Hughes, the brilliant writer director of all those 80s comedies. It's actually his first big movie that he wrote. And it's just a great movie. And something kind of interesting about that I didn't realize until recently when I looked this up. They had a different ending for that movie. Everybody remembers the way the movie ends. They kidnap John Candy's character, and they take him on the roller coaster. Yeah. Originally in that movie, the way they shot it the first time around, they had kidnapped Roy Wally, the guy that owns Wally World.
Oh my God! They had an alternate ending. You're right.
They took him all through the park, and then they showed that to as a screening, and people hated it. They thought, oh, you kidnapped this old guy, and it's kind of sad. So they had to go back and reshoot the entire thing months later. And as a result, Anthony Michael Hall is like 3 inches taller than he is in the first half of the movie. So Rusty grew a lot by the time they got to Wally World. So that's kind of funny. But I love that movie. It's just classic. Anybody who's ever been on a road trip in their life can kind of identify it.
And Harold Ramis, I think, directed it, correct?
Directed it. He did, yeah.
And Harold Ramis, who was just on a tear during that decade with Ghostbusters.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of it,
another monster of the 80s.
Definitely a monster of the 80s. Yeah, good choice. It's really tough to argue with that one.
Well, I guess I gotta keep the train moving then. I'm also gonna piggyback off the Chevy Chase momentum we got going here, and I'm gonna go to a 1980 fucking classic.
Oh yeah,
Caddyshack.
These are great. Seriously, the three movies we just mentioned would be great back-to-back movies at a drive-in.
Oh yeah,
yes,
perfect.
Chew up a couple of gummies, and sit back and watch them.
Chew them up, swallow them down, and get your ass there.
I would never last.
With a bucket
these
of
movies start
popcorn
too late for me now. I've just gotten too old. I'm in bed at 10 o'clock. Now it's like when I see the line first movie at dusk, I have a heart attack. I'm like, holy shit, that's 9 o'clock.
I'm like, how inappropriate.
But yeah, Caddyshack, everybody always remembers Chase and Bill Murray, but Ted Knight stole that movie, man.
Oh yeah.
He did, man. I mean, and obviously Dangerfield too with his character.
Hey everybody, we're all gonna get laid.
I mean, no matter that's one of those movies that almost every scene you're laughing. And it's brilliantly written. It's so simple. I mean, and to bring you into the world of a private country club with these cast of characters,
it was such a great idea for a film. Bring these goons in,
and that was Bill Murray's brother.
Yeah, Brian Doyle Murray.
Brian Murray
was one of the writers.
Yeah, and he was in the movie too, small role. He was
another 80s movie with a Kenny Loggins hit.
Oh,
I'm all right.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
these 80s movies had amazing soundtracks. That's going to be a theme on my list.
kind of a dying art, the killer soundtrack to movies.
No.
It's not like it used to be.
There
And the
hasn't
80s made it
been
that way.
a great soundtrack for a movie in quite some time, where it's like they have all these hits,
Yeah.
And that's what's crazy is that we just named 3 different 80s comedies that star Chevy Chase. And I don't know how many people could pull that something like that off, where you were in that many good movies.
He could have his own Mount Rushmore. Future episode alert.
He could. Unfortunately, there weren't that many good ones after those 3. I mean, there was, Christmas Vacation. Christmas Vacation was very funny, and the other 2, European and Vegas, were just duds. Those were just bad.
And then the rumors started to come out about how big of a dickhead he is.
Yeah.
You can kind of see that in interviews even now. He's just become this really grumpy old man. And Murray, too, I heard, is an ass to work with on the set.
Cannonball it. Cannonball! Cannonball coming. Cannonball coming.
Oh, shit. We need to say allegedly, don't we? Allegedly. For all you greedy lawyers listening, I said allegedly.
Yes.
Yes, we agree. We know we've never met them. We assume things, and assuming's wrong. So we all have one on the board here. So I think back to you there, Mr.
This is
Terry
tough.
Dan.
I'm going to have to roll with Fast Times at Ridgemont High, directed by Amy Heckerling.
Brilliant.
Classic, typical high school movies back in the LA area back then. I mean, they just and the Sean Penn, of course, that put him on the map. And it's funny because Sean Penn, Jeff Spicoli, is based on a real friend of Sean Penn's. I don't know. It's funny when he tells the story, but there is a real Jeff Spicoli, not his name, but he based that character from a neighbor friend of his that was just like him.
Wow.
I heard this recently. Hanson, you've probably heard this too. I heard Sean Penn on Smartless, another podcast that's amazing. And he did get into that actually was based on a dude he knew. And the guy ended up growing up to be kind of like a normal business guy, very square type.
Why don't you get a job, Spicoli? What for? You need money. All I need are some tasty waves, cool buzz, and I'm fine.
And he ran into him years later, and he didn't want to tell him that, hey, Spicoli was actually like molded after you.
It was and then we just talked about soundtracks. I mean, there was a lot of good tunes on the soundtrack. American Girl, Tom Petty, Don Headley had a good tune on there.
Jackson Brown was on that soundtrack.
Yeah, the Cars moving in stereo. We know what scene that was. I'll give you a hint. It was a pool, and that's all I'm going to say.
And cool. Oh my God.
Yeah, I love that pick. I love that pick.
Brilliant movie, man.
It's easy for me to pivot off that pick because it's also on my Mount Rushmore. So
it is.
I was just going to ask you that. Is it on yours? Because I was just going to volunteer. Believe it or not, it's not on mine, and I felt like an absolute clown not having it in my final 4. But again, I got to. In the end, I'm going to defend my picks. But it's like right there. It's Fast
absolutely.
Times at Ridgemont High.
It definitely made the cut for me. It's on my Mount Rushmore, and I was not aware of that little story about Sean Penn and Spicoli. Although I do know a little nugget. They actually offered that role, the Spicoli role. They offered it to Matthew Broderick first, and he said no. Can you imagine?
I mean, I love Broderick, but not
me
too, but not for that. Not for that.
Not as a stoner, a surfing stoner. No way.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean,
it
would not have worked. It just wouldn't have worked. So,
and with all the great people in that movie, who I thought stole the show in that one was the teacher, Mr. Hand, the history teacher.
Oh yeah. Yes.
I mean, I laughed my balls off at that guy more than anybody else, more than Spicoli. I mean, this guy, because who didn't have a history teacher like Mr. Hand?
You dick!
At Anoka High School, they had the history classes in the portables. These were the portables next to the high school because the high school, just got so big. And there was a guy, Mr. Colvin, who was just like this, 10 times worse than Mr. Hand, put it that way. So very relatable as well.
Well, and last thing too, speaking of, I mean, for me, who stole the show, and I hate if I get his name wrong, his character name.
Damone.
I believe it's Ramon.
Damone. Yeah,
Is it Ramon?
Damone with a D.
Damone?
Yep.
Damone.
Yeah. Oh,
The ticket scalper. Now that was a smooth cat right there. Like the way he talked, the way he had like gravitas.
I mean,
he never saw him and never saw that actor again either that I can remember. Actually,
I don't remember ever seeing him in anything else.
Yeah,
but what a role though, man! He crushed it. But so both of you guys have Fast Times. So you both have 2 on the board, and I have 1.
Yep.
Does that sound right?
Well, I'm gonna see what you got.
I'm gonna keep it still kind of early mid 80s with my next pick, and it has a very it brings me back, and it has meaning to me. It's not probably going to be on anybody's Mount Rushmore but mine, which is again sad considering the ones that I had to shove to the side for this spot. It's a 1984 comedy with Tom Hanks, Bachelor Party.
Wow.
And this is the original Hangover movie, kids. You know, this was Hangover before Hangover, but why is it on my list, some might ask, when there's so many good comedies of the 80s? It's because it's the very first R-rated comedy as a kid I saw, and it was my very first set of boobies that I got to see on screen. So clearly, if that's not represented on my Mount Rushmore of when boobies were introduced to me, I don't know what this podcast is about then.
Now, at the time, did you have to sneak into the movie because it was R-rated, or did you have like your friend's mom like escort you into the theater?
No, it was my very close friend, like a brother to me. He lived next door to me, and his name was Craig. I actually didn't see it in the theater. I saw it when it was like a new release video rental, and I went over to his house.
Yeah.
And I watched it, and I was just captivated. I was laughing, I was excited. Going back to the other topic, and it was just cool because, you know, I forgot, if I had to guess, I'm probably 8 or 9 years old when I saw this movie. And again, it's an R-rated comedy, so you have content, you have drugs, you have women, you have the language, and well, again, it's what helped shape who I am today.
Yes, perfect.
No, that movie definitely earned its R rating with the content in that movie.
That was a very,
no doubt.
very young Tom Hanks.
Oh,
yes,
God,
very
that's
young.
bosom buddies Tom Hanks. Because, man, he went on a tear there, too.
He did a really bad horror movie, I think, right out of the gate after Bosom Buzzy calls He Knows You're Alone.
What?
And that was just terrible. Yeah, and that's nobody hates that movie more than Tom Hanks.
I can't even recall it, but I mean, that stretch where Money Pit and Big.
Oh
yeah.
I mean, he was on a tear.
I think Bachelor Party and Splash kind of kicked off a great run for him. I mean, he went on a tear that lasted well into the 90s.
I mean, if you could have your time machine and watch Bachelor Party in the theater for the first time in '84, and then someone tells you in 2024 he's one of the most revered American treasure actors we have and has won numerous awards.
Look at the role.
Get the hell out of here.
Look at the role in Bachelor Party compared to his role in like Philadelphia.
Yeah,
it's like the guy could just play
Ryan.
Forrest Gump, for God's sake.
Yeah, that's a transformation as an actor right there.
Oh yeah, I was a big Gump fan when that came out. The movie's a little long, but I loved it
because it was unique. And again, I love Tom Hanks. I love that I got to represent him in a comedy from the '80s, and that's a real pick for me. So we all have 2 chiseled into the mountain here. So now we're gonna head on back to you there, TD. What do you got?
Oh my God, this was tough, but I just because of the fact that this was one of the first movies where I actually sat in the theater and I almost shit my pants because I was laughing so hard. But I got to roll with Strange Brew, the Bob and Doug McKenzie movie.
Oh no! Jeez, I gotta take a leak so bad I can taste it.
Max von Sydow or Sydow, however you pronounce, The Exorcist. I don't know who the casting director was, but accolades to whoever that was. You've got this kind of prestige icon in Max von Sydow, who is in just these big, giant 3-hour epic dramas, where he's just fantastic. And then he he's the villain in a Bob and Doug McKenzie movie. And I just thought it was so fucking bad and so stupid. I just couldn't stop laughing. I have to have it in my 4. It's got to be there.
Yeah, I loved that movie.
It's just
I bet it's been
ridiculous.
15, 20 years since I've seen it last, and that's when I hear it, I really want to go rewatch.
Yeah,
just
you
to
got
bring myself
back
back
it
to it.
again. It's just it'll be worse. It'll be worse now, but you'll still laugh really hard.
Sure, that is
So
a
that
great
was
pick.
the beginning of Rick Moranis' career, and then there was the other guy who we all know Rick Moranis, but then I'm not sure what the other guy's name.
Dave Thomas, I think.
Oh, that's right. I think you're right. It's Dave Thomas, not the Wendy's guy, but the other Dave Thomas.
Dave was, he was a writer. He co-wrote some comedies back then. But yeah, Rick Moranis definitely had the better, acting career after that.
Yeah. The whole Honey, I Shrunk the Kids bit.
Yeah, and then he had the in Parenthood, and he had
Ghostbusters
good choice roles for him.
That's a great pick, man. Strange Brew. Classic.
It has to be on there, man.
Yeah, that one takes me back to my childhood. I loved that as a kid too. So I'll jump in with my third pick now. Mark, you mentioned your first R-rated movie that you remember seeing. This one is the first R-rated movie that I remember seeing, and I did see it in the movie theater. My brother took me to see this movie, Beverly Hills Cop.
Yes.
I just love that. To this day, I just watched that probably 6 months ago. It stands the test of time. It's still funny.
It's on Netflix. It's hard to stop watching the second you go past the thumbnail and you have to hit the play button, and it's just like, oh my god!
And even if it's on like HBO or something, you can pop into the middle of that movie and just right away you're sucked in.
You damn right, wise ass.
You don't. So it's just a
great characters,
movie.
Great villains. It's just goofy, And then they're the new one this summer.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got a new one coming. Yeah.
Kind of the real introduction to action comedy too. And again, we were talking about Chevy Chase in this light. Eddie Murphy. Here's who else again is a bigger representation of the 80s than Eddie Murphy?
You were lying your ass off.
Yeah. I mean, he had a hell of a run in the 80s, didn't he?
It was the start of those. It was the start of those action comedy. Midnight Run was another one with Robert De Niro and
that's right.
Charles Grodin. They were all a part of that same team that Don Simpson, Jerry Bruckheimer, I think his name is, and
sure.
Yep.
Speaking of action too, this is Mark, I know you are a big Stallone fan. I have a little Beverly Hills Cop Stallone factoid.
Oh,
are you aware of the tie here?
I have no idea where you're going with this.
He was originally slated to star in that movie, and it would have been a very different movie because he had co-written it as an action movie.
He would have been Axel?
He would have been the Axel. I don't know if it would have been the same name, but he was going to be the Beverly Hills Cop, and he had wrote it in a very much an action drama based type movie, and that's what it was going to be, and not a lot of comedy elements. And the studio decided we want to make a funny movie. We want to grab this hot young star Eddie Murphy. We want to do it this way, make it a funny thing, and so they pulled Stallone off of it. And Stallone actually took a lot of the ideas that he wrote in the script and put it into Cobra. So when you watch Cobra, his movie, a couple of years later, that was what Beverly Hills Cop was supposed to be. Isn't that crazy?
Isn't Cobra the one where he had a matchstick in his mouth during the entire film? Oh yeah.
And then the night stalker guy, the underground cult that would slam axes together when they meet and
yes.
You know what? That was one of those movies. If you guys remember this back then, they had like the Midnight Madness showings at all the theaters. So they would start the first movie at like midnight, and that would be one of them. They'd have like Dawn of the Dead and some of the Night of the Living Dead and some of that shit. But then right in the middle, they'd have Cobra.
Cobra.
Such a classic. But wow, I as big of a Sly fan as I am, I've never heard that in my whole life.
That is one of those deep tracks right there. I'm sure many people do not realize that. The other quick fact, and then I'll let you take over, Mark, with your next pick. The budget for Beverly Hills Cop was $14 million. That was the budget for filming. $4 million went to Eddie.
Oh, I believe it. I believe
they
it.
knew he was so bankable at that point in time, So,
oh my God.
48 Hours was such a huge hit with him and Nick Nolte. That was just a monster hit. So that didn't, that wasn't going to hurt his next movie deal.
God.
Yeah,
and
no,
that- so
he was on a roll.
it was.
Oh,
It's
God.
obvious.
Judge Reinhold and Judge Reinhold in that movie.
Yeah, I got to mention that quick. I got to say this quick. I have 2 movies with Judge Reinhold in them.
I know. That would be hard to predict. That's hard to predict, man. Vegas didn't even have any odds on that shit. No. Tonight, John Hanson is going to pick 2 movies with Judge Reinhold.
Who? Bullshit.
I'm not putting money down on that shit.
Well, dude, I gotta ride the wave again, just like I did with Chevy. I'm gonna go to my Mount Rushmore pick that features Eddie Murphy, and this is one that was when the topic came up and I started listing my movies. This was one where I never had to question. It was locked in its place, and that's Coming to America, 1988.
Yeah. Absolutely, man.
And I just know, like, for my core dingling buddies I grew up with, this is the movie, man, that just talk about being able to just throw quotes out from movies and show off what Eddie Murphy could do, especially when him and Arsenio Hall played all those characters. Between the barber shop and the preacher.
What do you know from funny, you bastard?
Really? And, like
the preacher was my favorite.
They're just amazing,
Classic.
Give it up for Mr. Randy Watson.
That was amazing, man, because he had done some good movies, but he didn't really have a chance to really kind of branch out and play like multiple characters. He did that on Saturday Night Live, but then Coming to America came around, and it was just like those guys just, man, that was how was the second one? Didn't they do a sequel a few years ago?
It was watchable. I mean, again, you're setting yourself up for disappointment when you're trying to follow a classic like that, but it was okay. I mean, did it provide the laughs that the first one did? Not even close.
Yeah, I didn't think it would.
It was an attempt, and it was okay, but man, Coming to America, again, it just the lines, the acting, the introduction to the culture of that part of New York and Queens, and just the whole scene. So that one was a no-brainer.
That's a good choice, for sure.
One of my favorite scenes is the when he's looking at the apartment, and there's the chalk outline of the blind guy with the seeing eye dog on the ground, and he's
damn shame what they did to that dog.
I love that line so much.
But again, you can watch that movie in like 60-second intervals and just pause to laugh.
It's the perfect nap. It's the perfect nap movie now, because you can just like wake up and know you didn't really miss anything, and you're going to get a joke like any second. So you're not really going to miss it. Was it better than Eddie Murphy in Candy Cane Lane?
I just watched that this past Christmas season, and I started hitting my head against the wall about 35 minutes in, going, this used to be Eddie Murphy. What happened?
I don't know what happened. I'm hoping that the new Beverly Hills Cop kind of brings the old Eddie back. He looks great in it. I saw the trailer, and trailers, of course, always look good, but it does. It's got like a lot of the original cast. Even Paul Reiser's in it, and it looks funny.
And he's supposed to be going on tour again, comedy wise.
Really?
I actually just saw an interview with him recently in the last week, where he's talking about he was planning to go on a big tour before COVID hit, and then that sidelined him, and now he's distracted with all the shitty movies other than Beverly Hills Cop, the Axel.
Fingers crossed it won't be a shitty movie. The way I see movies like that is I go into them with very low expectations, and then if I do get a few laughs out of it, I'm not disappointed. So that's the way I see that.
I'm hopeful because it's the same crew that made the first Beverly Hills Cop, but the same director, same producers, and like 3 and 4 or whatever, not 4, but 3, I think had a different director, and that one was really bad.
Pretty wild too. That's about 30 years later.
Yeah. It'll be. Eddie looks great. I hope it's huge. It's a Netflix movie. I wish it was more of a theater movie, but I hope it's good.
We all got 3 up on the mountain, right?
We all have 3, so I'm dying to know the last. I know what mine is. I'm dying to know how we finish this topic off.
This was really, really hard because I went back and forth between these two for many hours today. But I'm going to have to go with Stripes with Bill Murray because
yes,
it is really there. That was a Bill Murray vehicle. I mean, that movie again was, talk about Fletch kind of made for Chevy Chase. Stripes was all Bill Murray. And of course, Harold Ramis is his buddy.
Where the hell have you been, soldier? Training, sir! Training, sir! What kind of training, son? Army training, sir! Army training, sir!
Early career of John Candy, and again, a movie that you could watch once a week and never get bored with.
I love it.
Not to like derail our topic here, but us just talking about these movies, and we haven't had much crossover here. We've had one match. Is that right? Fast Times was the only match so far.
Yeah, and they're all great.
Yeah, it was.
But after talking about these movies the way we are, I'm like, I can't help but sit here and go, they just don't make comedies like this anymore.
No, comedies are for the most part dead. I mean, maybe they make a comeback, but the 80s, that was the decade for these types of comedies. It's just
there was zero filter, worrying about offending everybody. I think that clearly plays into that, what I just said. You can't make comedies. Look at any one of these movies we've just talked about. I'm sure have lines in them that if you played them now in a theater in 2024, cancel culture would be marching up your ass.
Yeah,
ready to say, whoa.
Yep. It's a different environment. I mean, it felt like they were kind of coming back when, like the Hangover movies came around, and then what was the big Vince Vaughn movie where they all went back to college and lived in the frat house?
Old school.
Old school. Yes.
Yeah, great. That's a great comedy.
But they were kind of coming back, and I'm like, God, this really feels like, comedies of like the 80s and early 90s. They're for a few years they kind of made a comeback.
Yeah, you're right. They did. Step Brothers was kind of a good comedy in that sense too. I mean, but it's been a while now. It's now we're back into the dark times of comedy, I guess.
Yeah. Everything's walking on eggshells.
The dark thrillers are great. There's great stuff out there. True Detective and
But yeah, man, like I said, these movies are they shaped us, man. I mean, we're all born, I'm assuming we're all born in the 70s, raised in the 80s. And these are the movies we got to see, and they were exciting and cool. And I'm excited to Hanson. What are you finishing with here?
Yeah. Well, but before I say mine, Stripes. So when I came up with my list of 4, Stripes was the one that just missed the cut. There's actually 2 other movies that just missed the cut as well, but Stripes was tough because I loved that movie. I loved the big RV at the end and the kind of an epic ending to that movie.
How about when he leaves that old lady hanging on the bridge in the cab? Remember that when he just like stopped in the middle of traffic?
Oh yes,
and walked away at the beginning
when he decided to join the army. Well, Stripes, that big epic ending with the kind of the chase and the RV and everything kind of leads a little bit into mine because my last movie, it's the Blues Brothers.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Of course, yeah.
The Blues Brothers is sort of an action / comedy / musical movie, and it was the movie that I first thought of as being my favorite movie when I was a little kid and I saw the Blues Brothers. Oh, that's my favorite movie. That's the first one I have in my brain. Classic. That was my favorite, and I just love it. Another one with John Candy. He's popped up in a bunch of our. He had a memorable role in that movie. It was an early movie for him. It's probably the best movie based on an SNL character, in my opinion. It's one of my favorite movies that involves music. And then the car chase scenes. There's the car chase scene where they literally destroy a mall. I mean, the cops are chasing them through a mall. I mean, that was epic.
I feel like in a conversation you and I have had at some point in our life, don't you sadly know how many cars were ruined while making that movie?
I do.
Not to put you on the spot, but wasn't it like an absurd amount?
Oh, I know they had. I think they had more than 60. They had like 60 police cars that they had bought to use in the movie, and every time they'd bang one up, they actually had. I do know this for a fact. They had these auto body guys working 24 hours a day to keep to fix up the cars. So when they'd smash one up, they'd pound out the dents and put it back on the road again. So and they had like 13 or 14 of the Blues mobiles that they used because they kept trashing those things too.
106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
Yeah, no, it was an awesome movie, and seeing that as a kid with all the car chase scenes and then the cool music.
It was a comedy that was like, it was funny, it was action packed, but it was like cool.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, I think you know what I mean by that. It was like a cool
they
comedy.
Were funny, and they were really good musicians. I mean, they were really entertaining singers. You know, it's just like, oh my God, these guys are doing it all. And John Landis directed that movie. How does he go from directing such a classic to Spies Like Us? Which I actually did kind of like, but it wasn't the same as the Blues Brothers.
Was that Chevy Chase? Spies Like Us?
Yeah, that was Chevy and Dan. Yeah,
Dan Aykroyd.
Dan Aykroyd. Yeah,
that one. Yeah,
wow,
that one wasn't.
That's a great list. So your guys' list, I'm down, and again, I'm amazed because here my final pick is a new one that we haven't discussed. It's not been picked yet.
Oh, good.
It's a late '80s movie. So that might reflect a little bit that I do like taking this jab at you two old shits, that I am a little younger than both of you, but this one is, it combined my two loves, baseball, comedy, Major League.
Oh my God. Yes. Yes.
And
maybe
the last 1989.
The last good movie Tom Berenger was in. That was kind of a very young Wesley Snipes, right? Wesley Snipes.
That's kind of his breakout role, yeah.
Yeah, that was his breakout role.
Willie Mays Hayes.
Oh
and again, talk about a movie that's just laced with one-liners and cool lines.
Up your butt, Joe Boo.
And how about Bob Uecker with the play-by-play?
Oh,
I mean, you can't. I just like he perfect guy for that role. You know, he's just being Bob. Here, say all this funny shit, Bob.
Yeah. He's just being himself.
So he's like, so you just want me to call a baseball game? You want me to call a baseball game that isn't actually going to happen?
His first offering, just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed.
But yeah, again, from the characters, the writing, they couldn't have cast it better. And it actually has that a little bit of a big kind of legit adrenaline rush at the end of that movie when they beat the Yankees. God, yeah. Again, combine my two first loves, baseball and watching funny movies. And when it came out and wow, it's both in one. You got to be kidding me.
And Tom Berenger.
Who?
And Tom Berenger. And you know, because every movie has a dick, right? Was there a bigger dick than Roger Dorn?
The snobby-ass rich third baseman.
Who played him again? Oh, Corbin Burnson. Oh God, what a prick he was in that movie.
Oh God, I love that scene where the coach tells him to get in front of the damn ball, and then like they cut away to different scenes, and then Dorn comes back with his contract on the practice field. It says, it says right here, I don't have to do any extra calisthenics that I don't feel are necessary. The coach won't say a word, just grabs it, throws it on the ground, and pisses on the contract and walks away. No words exchanged. God, I love that movie. That is a movie that probably, like Coming to America, I wouldn't even want to know the number of times I've actually watched it, because they both are like that. Both Coming to America. Those were my two pillar positions on this top 4 pick for me. Was there's no way those were not going to be on my list. They're too damn important to me. Think
too, when you watched it on VHS, didn't you think those were going to be around forever? Like, did you ever just dream that you were going to be able to just stream something on your television? I mean, that would have seemed so outrageous. Even
I think about that often, you know, having a son who, you know, he gets to look at all these streaming services and just the thumbnail menu items. It's like they're robbed of that experience of riding your bike to Mr. Movies or Blockbuster.
Right. Oh,
and then spending 40 minutes in there pacing around going, I don't know what to pick.
Yeah. For one movie, and then bringing home 1 or 2 movies. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a different world. And when you said the VHS tapes, I guess I got a little nervous when Laserdiscs came out.
What?
I think I have one. I know I've got a couple of 8-tracks. I have Kiss and ABBA in a box somewhere on 8-track. But as far as laser discs, I know somewhere we have the Wizard of Oz and the Sound of Music in a box somewhere on Laserdisc.
Those are easily worth about 80 cents today.
Oh yeah, probably. Yeah, my parents never got rid of anything, and I remember it didn't last long, but I remember the Laserdisc.
That was a short-lived window, and the DVDs just took over like a tidal wave.
For our younger listeners, laser discs were a movie format that lasted for about 6 months in the 80s.
And they looked like an original LP record album.
Yeah, they were big, like a DVD, but like 3 times the size.
But don't people still have Blu-ray players? Aren't Blu-ray players they're not like super popular, but people, I think, still have them, don't they?
Yeah, like I have one. I don't even know if I have it hooked up anymore. It's a DVD and Blu-ray player, but who the hell uses it?
Yeah, I don't.
What's the point? Now I can just say into my mic on my remote, this movie, and boom, there it is.
There it is.
Because it's too much physical labor to actually have to scroll through the guide.
It is pretty crazy how far we've come, and I think maybe that's why we love these movies.
I can't believe nobody picked Porky's.
I thought about it. I thought about Porky's.
It was on the tail end, and so was Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Got kicked out of Stripes.
That one, I thought about Spaceballs. That was on my list, and Airplane.
Oh my God,
that was on my longer list.
Oh my God, Airplane.
Is Airplane 80s though? Is that 79?
I'm pretty sure it's 1980.
Is it like Caddyshack?
Right on the dot.
Pretty sure it was,
yeah.
No Naked Gun references either. Probably because of the OJ element. Everyone's nervous. I don't want to talk about it. What the hell did I recently hear? It was a part that Arnold Schwarzenegger ended up landing that was monstrous for him. But it was this is a dumb reference because now I can't put it together. But it was originally offered to OJ, but Schwarzenegger got it.
Was it like Commando or Terminator or one of those? Or
I think it actually was Terminator. Yeah, you know what? God. It was too obvious that it was the grab. Oh my God. Arnold Schwarzenegger was trying to be like the good guy in the first Terminator. Reese, I believe his name was.
Yeah, Reese. Yeah, Reese was the hero.
Yeah, he wanted to be the hero role, and then
played by Michael Bain, I believe.
And that's a James Cameron movie, if I remember right.
Yeah, that's a very early Cameron movie.
And they had an offer out to OJ to be Terminator, and James Cameron at the last minute changed his mind and said, "Arnold, this is for you. You got to play that part." And he actually didn't want it at first because he didn't want to be the bad guy.
Yeah, that's right. Wow. And he was pretty good as a bad guy. Turns out.
Isn't it amazing? Just the little moments in a life that change a life.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, think of the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Indiana Jones nearly went to Tom Selleck.
Crazy. That's insane to think about that.
They were considering him, and then Harrison Ford came in and did the read, and they were just like, yeah, you're it. That was
and
pretty
Tom
much
Selleck,
a no-brainer at that point.
He ended up right where he belonged in 3 Men and a Baby.
Yeah. With Steve Guttenberg. Who else was it? It was Steve
Ted Danson.
Ted
Danson.
And Tom Selleck, and of course they had to make 2.
Again, this was an unbelievably fun topic to cover. We could go on, and just next thing you know, it's 1 in the morning.
I feel like I need to watch a couple of these just tonight now, because it's hard not to after you've been talking about them for an hour.
The one that sticks out the most that I want to watch again is, and I might regret it because you warned me, is Strange Brew.
You have because
it's been so long.
It's just for Max von Sydow.
Yeah.
Remember when he put his hands around that guy's head? He goes, "I could crush your head, but I won't because I need you." And of course, he scared the shit out of me when the first time I ever saw The Exorcist completely uncut. Had a friend of mine on video. I think I was a junior in high school, and I don't think I slept for like 3 weeks. It's like, holy. I mean,
Wow.
you know it's bad when the
Oh.
TV starts to smell like fire. It's just, I mean, it was just pure evil. There was.
Yeah, it's like
No,
that
it was.
burnt metal
I
TV
was
smell.
begging, throw a joke in anywhere. I don't even care if it's not even all that funny. Let's lighten it up for a couple of seconds. Nope, never happened.
Nope.
That'll definitely be a future Mount Rushmore podcast.
Oh,
What
yeah,
movies
yeah.
made you shit your
You guys
pants
need a
the
shit your
most?
pants horror special come Halloween or something.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah.
That is. We'll earmark that one. Well, I think, guys, first, again, I'm going to thank Terry for being a part of this nonsense that we call our podcast. But it is so fun to talk about this because it's all about opinions. It's about interaction. We encourage people to go on any of the social platforms, give us your comments, let us know where we missed, let us know where we crushed it, let us know if we're even on the right track. Because again, this is such a big topic, and to try to funnel it into 4. And Terry's not kidding. Like I had a marker out, crossing off names, writing it back. Oh my God. Then I'd remember this one. And then it gets you distracted, and it's so hard to just commit. But in the end, you have to. And I think we're all pretty comfortable with the 4 choices we made. And I'll leave it. Hanson, do you have anything to add? Because I do have our first and most important question.
I do not have anything to add other than
guest.
to comment. Find us. We're at What's Your Mount Rushmore on all the socials, and find us, leave a comment, let us know what we missed, let us know your picks, because we'd love to hear from you.
And Terry, being our honorary first guest, we're going to give you a choice that you do have to answer. This will air because people are going to want to know what you picked. You get to choose between 2. As a thank you for being on our podcast, you get to choose from these 2 beautiful companies, and we're going to give you an avalanche of value in a gift certificate. But you have to choose. You're either going to get to go to Mervyn's, California, or Circuit City.
Are there any circuit? Are there any
Hanson
circuit
has your mailing
cities
address,
left?
so we'll handle it from there. But
That's not relevant. Just make a choice.
Not relevant.
that's for us to know and you to find out.
I don't even care if they're around. I got to say Circuit City because I'm an electronics nerd.
Yeah,
I don't even care if they're in business anymore. I'm gonna say Circuit
luck.
City.
Good luck with all that.
All right, Circuit City it is. Thank you. And that is our official wrap. So thank you, Circuit City, for sponsoring this.